everybody, it's Charles, your hobby hero, and I'm coming at you today with another cleaning and pressing video. But before we get started, please hit that subscribe button down in the bottom corner. I do appreciate it. I do put out regular content about the hobbies that I love the most. Now we're going to have a cleaning and pressing video today. The people voted, and the people voted for G.I. Joe #1, so we're doing Star Wars 68. I know I had you guys vote on it. The truth of the matter is my recording studio is currently under construction for a remodeling project. The recordings for this book were already done, and rather than not put another video out for another week, I'm going to go ahead and put out this video. I promise the Star Wars book is coming, and you're not going to want to miss that book either. There may be a giveaway in that one, wink wink. So make sure you hit that notifications bell down there as well. Star Wars 68, great book all the way around. Cover is fantastic with Boba Fett on the cover. It is the first full appearance of Dengar, which is also another one of the bounty hunters that I grew up with. So big fan of that as well. A lot of times it is mislabeled as the origin story of Boba Fett, but it is actually another bounty hunter in the armor throughout the book. It looks like Boba Fett, but it is not Boba Fett. But still a cool story to read. Highly recommend it. Great cover. Will look good in any collection. Actually picked this book up in a mystery box from Friday's Comics and Collectibles, and this book was absolutely beat when I got it. So take a look at what we did to get this book back into the condition where it can be a presentation piece for someone's collection. Without further ado, let's jump in. Alright, so here we have the Star Wars 68. Check out the front and back. You can already see a lot of the creasing on this book. It is pretty much creased from head to toe. The indentations on the front cover are probably some of the deeper ones, as you can see right there. Some here on the side. Book's pretty dirty as well, but fortunately not a ton of staining. And yes, I do have the superpower to open right to the middle staples. We're going to support that spine so we don't press those staples into any of the pages. And then we are going to put a piece of 65-pound paper underneath the covers. It's just going to give us a little bit more of a surface to work on so that the cover's got a little bit of support while we're dry cleaning the book. Do the same for the back cover. Biggest help for this is it keeps, like, if the cover's a little bit bigger than the interior pages, it kind of keeps you from pushing down or creasing the edge or resulting in a color break on the edge. So first we're going to take this makeup round. We work it around the edges, just again away from the edges all times, and then circular motions in the middle. This is really going to help to get, one, just the loose dirt off of it, but sometimes it's going to find those spots on the surface that you may not be able to see, where there's something like sticky or abrasive on the surface that you'll know to pay extra attention to as well later on in the process. It does get a lot of dirt off, but there's still a lot left on it. For that, we're going to move to the Absarine sponge. Again, this just work one direction. Don't go up and down. I am just pulling down on the page here. This is going to pull out some more of the dirt that's actually like down into the fibers of the page. And this is going to be pretty safe to use on all color surfaces. You're going to see we're going to take it right over the bright yellows and the bright reds on the cover here. And we're really going to work a lot in those yellow areas with it because it's probably the most abrasive that you can go on a yellow without pulling up the cover, any of the color off of the cover on it. So again, just pulling one direction on those, and you can see how much came off from just that treatment there. From there, we're going to go into a artist eraser, and we're just going to work on the whites. We will not take this into any of the colors, so we're being very careful to not hit any of that red. It will pull it up. We're not pressing hard. You can burn through the paper or burn through the gloss on some of the newer comic books, so you do not want to press hard. This is very light. You can use circular motions, back and forth motions to kind of create the friction that you do want for this process, but you don't really want to be pressing hard, and you definitely don't want to be focusing on a particular area very difficult or with a lot of pressure and attention with this thing, because you can damage the book with these artist erasers. Not a ton of white on the front of the book here. Work in the inside of that blast shot just a little bit. Really careful there though, because it will pull yellow up super fast. So don't even think about touching the yellows with those markers. Some colors you can kind of go over the top of or get close to. Yellow is not one of them. It will pull it up very easy and very quickly. The very edge of these spines are usually super dirty, so it's usually like the part of contact it's been with everything else on. So we're going around those white areas. Again, if there were more whites intermittent with those other darker colors, you can sometimes erase inside those and you're fine, especially if you're not putting a ton of pressure on. But on your brighter colors, definitely avoid it with the eraser. Now from here, we are actually going to be doing some wet cleaning on this. And I know in the past I have told people to avoid wet cleaning on these individual books. And for the most part, I still stick with that. It is not something I would do on just any book. This book is particularly dirty, and it's not stained dirty. It is, built in like grease from your hands, locking in dirt. So we are actually going to be using a surfactant to clean this. I have changed my method on how to use these surfactants. So as you can see, very light pressure in single strokes. I mean, when I say very light pressure, just making contact with the paper, not actually pushing down at all. It does get tacky, so that's why I'm holding it with that pad at the top, because my fingers will actually stick to it, and that is kind of why I changed the approach on it before. I used to apply the surfactant, then let it dry and see if there were any streaks, and then I would go over it with distilled water to take those streaks off if they were there. And I think letting it dry would already make it tacky enough and sticky enough to where I would go over it with that distilled water and it would actually pull color. I'm not going to say super easily, but made it more prone to pulling color. Whereas now, as soon as I finish with the surfactant, I will get another makeup pad here and I will wet it with distilled water, and I will immediately go over the surface with the distilled water. This prevents it from really getting very tacky, and it will also keep it from streaking, because that would be what would happen is if you're using a surfactant and you clean, especially on a very dirty surface, you'll have like clean lines in the paper, and it will either be very unsightly at the worst, and at the best it would still be noticeable if somebody's grading the book. So you want to make sure you just take the distilled water immediately afterwards. Again, no pressure, just touching it onto the surface of the paper and pulling it in one direction, and that stroke keep anything from lifting up. So now it has just got distilled water on the surface. We've already kind of rinsed that surfactant off. We're going to let it air dry. Do the editing. You did not see the time lapse there, but we let it air dry for a few minutes before we go and work on the front cover. You notice I'm putting like a buffer sheet there. That sheet is going to get the surfactant and the distilled water on it, but it keeps it from getting onto the page that's going to be used as the backer going forth into the pressing process. So again, first we use the surfactant, and there could be different methods. We obviously don't want to use circular motions on here, but I do like to take the vertical lines first and then go and do a horizontal on it as well, coming at the I don't want to say baked on, but the caked on dirt at a couple different angles. I feel helps bring it up a little bit, so that's why you'll see me change the direction of the book and come down in different directions. If it's a particularly dirty spot and a particularly fragile or low grade book, I may even come at it from a different angle, turn it at an angle and come down at like a 45-degree angle on the page, just to try to get it at a different angle to help bring something up. But again, immediately coming over it with distilled water, and again using that makeup pad so that my fingers don't stick to that surfactant when it's on there, because it is pretty tacky if you haven't used it before. I still would not recommend using gloves, because you kind of use the the tactile feel of your fingertips, but it can leave permanent fingerprint marks in there if you're working on like a darker color book as well. So there is our wet clean. Again, we let it dry. We went ahead and pressed it. So this is after our first press. This has not even been humidified any more so than just the liquid that was put on the cover. You can already see most of the creases are out of the book. The back is dramatically cleaner. There's a little bit of a water stain in that top corner, and there's a little bit of a stain in the bottom corner that we're going to work on next. A little bit of dry cleaning in between. It's not super noticeable from the video, but in person there was still quite a bit that could be cleaned up with dry cleaning. So sometimes you're going to be dry cleaning multiple times throughout the process, especially if you have a book as dirty as this particular book was. Wet cleaning doesn't get everything, dry cleaning doesn't get everything, and sometimes you're going to have to repeat those processes. It's crazy how much shinier the book looks like just because it's not all wrinkled up now. You get those torn up books, and a lot of people will ask if you've restored the gloss to them at all, and you're like, well, just when the surface isn't all broken up, it makes a huge improvement to the ability for that to kind of have a sheen and a shine to it. Again, just touching up the dry cleaning around the Star Wars, and we'll touch it up a little bit with the absorbing too in the yellow areas. That was probably the most disappointing, was just the amount of stuff that we could not get out of the yellow. It did improve markedly, but there was still quite a bit left. But when it comes to yellow is probably the hardest color to clean in because it's just the easiest to lift from the page. So we're working in that yellow area again just to try to get, and that's with an absorbing pad, to get the rest of that dirt kind of cooked out of there. There's probably not careful enough there. You can kind of see there's a small tear that was on the side that I kind of nicked with the pad. I had to push that kind of back into place. I didn't tear it further, but if I had been just a little more forceful on that stroke, I probably would have ripped a piece of the cover off there. So you got to be careful when you work around the edges of the paper. But we get that adjusted and pushed back in. And then we can go and treat these light stains on the back. Just adjust it ever so slightly back into place. Alright, now that we get that pushed back into place, we are going to start working on these stains on the back. Now, we don't know what the stains are from. They appear to be water stains in the top and bottom outside corners. So we're going to work with the heat overlay method first. That does tend to be the most effective way for removal of the tide lines. Now we're only going to treat the back cover. So we're going to remove that 65-pound piece of paper, and we're going to apply a copy paper that has been sprayed with hydrogen peroxide to the top cover. We are going to press that firmly against the surface of the book, just using a flat surface. I think in this one I use just an old credit card that was around, so get all those air bubbles out. You can use business card, playing card, whatever it is, something that's got a straight, firm edge, just so that you can get that firmly pressed down. You don't want to leave any wrinkles or air bubbles in there because they will get pressed in pretty permanently into the cover at that point. Then we're going to lay another piece of copy paper over top of this sheet. And then a 100-pound piece of paper. Kind of smooth it down again just to make sure we're good on those areas. And then a backing board, and then we take it and we are going to press the book. After it has rested and returned back to its normal temperature, we'll take it back out, and we're going to repeat that process but on the interior of the page. So we're going to pull that off. Didn't pull a ton of the top stain out, and I don't think it really did anything to the bottom stain at all. So we're going to try it from the inside to see if we can get the rest of those two stains gone. You can still see in that top corner just a light faint one there, but that bottom corner is still pretty visible. So similar to the other method, only it's going to be on the interior of the book. So we open up the book. Now you do not want to take this page all the way to the staples. I just found that much moisture that close to the crease in the paper by the staples, it's just a recipe for getting those staples to split. So you want to give yourself a little bit of room before going just right up to the staples. Put the back cover down on it. Again, cover that with copy paper again. I'm going to press it down, make sure it's firm against the, I guess, the underlay in this one. And then we're going to put our 100-pound paper and card backer, magazine backer back on top. Press and check out our results from this method. Now, I would not, unless you're getting like dramatic result differences, like if there's a ton of staining and it just takes multiple presses to do, I would not recommend just repeatedly doing this process. If you're not seeing results with a process, chances are repetitive treatments is not going to improve those. As you can see, just very carefully removing these, quite firmly attached there. Now, as you can still see the stain on the bottom ever so slightly. The stain at the top is pretty much all gone, but we didn't really make a ton of progress on the stain in the bottom corner. So we're actually going to try and use our blue LED lights. The blue LED lights will help brighten the front cover quite a bit. Those reds and yellows will really pop, and hopefully it will finish off that stain in that bottom corner there. So just lightly mist it. We'll set it in our box here, and we'll keep it in there for a couple hours, misting periodically to keep those pages moist. And after we hit it in the light box, we'll take it out, we'll humidify the book. For this one, there weren't a ton of deep creases left in it, so I think I just used a hand humidifier, and then we put it in for our final press before we check out our final results. So hard to tell here, you'll see it in the before and afters, but the cover is has become brighter. You can still see the page breaks a little bit more as well because they've been whitened as well. But as you can tell, the creases are all gone from that cover. There's a color break crease there where the page's fibers were damaged. We can't do anything about those. Back very clean. Top corner is free from stains. That is all cleaned up. Our bottom corner is still a slight line there. It really didn't lighten much more after the initial treatment, so I think whatever is staining it is probably permanent. Our before and afters, you can see a huge difference, way less dirt, way brighter colors on the before and after. Just a close-up of the logo where you can just see how much was in that Star Wars logo. Some of the creasing that was there before versus the after pictures. Again, there was pretty much every angle I could take a picture of this was creased on the front. These were some of the worst creased areas. Back was just absolutely filthy. You can see that it is all cleaned up on the back side now. There's kind of the difference that we made in that bottom corner.
There you guys have it. Make sure you let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite Boba Fett cover is. And again, make sure you have that notifications bell on so when I put out future videos, you guys can catch those as well. Until next time, guys, Hobby Hero, out.